Purport. The Lord is the supreme seer because only by his glance did the material energy become active for cosmic manifestation. At that time, the seer was there, but the external energy over which the glance of the Lord is cast was not present. He felt somewhat insufficient, like a husband feeling lonely in the absence of his wife. This is a poetic simile. The Lord wanted to create the cosmic manifestation, to give another chance to the conditioned souls who were dormant in forgetfulness. The cosmic manifestation gives the conditioned souls a chance to go back home, back to Godhead, and that is its main purpose. The Lord is so kind that in the absence of such a manifestation, he feels something wanting, and thus the creation takes place. Although the creation of the internal potency was manifested, the other potency appeared to be sleeping, and the Lord wanted to awaken her to activity, just as a husband wants to awaken his wife from the sleeping state for enjoyment. It is the compassion of the Lord for the sleeping energy that he wants to see her awaken for enjoyment, like the other wives who are awake. The whole process is to enliven the sleeping conditioned souls to the real life of spiritual consciousness, so that they may thus become as perfect as the ever-liberated souls in the Vaikuntha Lokas. Since the Lord is Satchidananda Vigraha, he likes every part and parcel of his different potencies to take part in the blissful rasa, because participation with the Lord in his eternal rasa lila is the highest living condition, perfect in spiritual bliss and eternal knowledge. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So just to give some context to this verse, this is from the chapter called Vidura's Talks with Maitreya, where the perfect devotee Vidura approached and inquired from the great sage Maitreya on the bank of the Ganges at Haridwar. Vidura made several inquiries. He asked about happiness, devotional service, creation, the many avatars and characteristics and topics of Krishna, and Maitreya greatly appreciated the inquiry and questions. And then Maitreya Muni went on to explain how he, Yamaraj, had come to take birth as Vidura. Maitreya also explained that Vidura was an eternal associate and that Krishna had left instructions for Vidura with him before departing. Just prior to this verse, Maitreya explains that before everything in existence, it was only the personality of Godhead that existed, and that it is by his will that creation happens, and afterwards everything again merges into him. And Ramarupa Prabhu gave a wonderful class on that yesterday, based on the Chatur Shloki, which he also covered. Maitreya Muni also said that the Supreme Self is known by different names. So just to read the verse translation again. The Lord is the undisputed proprietor of everything. The Lord, the undisputed proprietor of everything, was the only seer. The cosmic manifestation was not present at that time, and thus he felt imperfect, without his plenary and separated parts and parcels. The material energy was dormant, whereas the internal potency was manifested. So just to check, do we have a roaming mic? If we can get it ready. I'm going to ask you a question. Ah, fantastic. Thank you. So the first point that struck me, I'm going to just comb through the purport. The first point that struck me is that the Lord is the supreme seer. And only because of his glance did the material energy become active for cosmic manifestation. And this reminds us that he's the only Purusha, the only enjoyer in terms of tattva, as the whole cosmos or prakriti is for his enjoyment and pleasure. In the same way, he's the primary seer, and because of his glance, the cosmos comes into being. So every day when we sing Brahma Samhita prayers, we say, Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti. That's from Brahma Samhita 532, which means that each of the limbs of the Supreme Lord possess the full-fledged functions of all the others, and that he eternally sees and maintains the manifestation and all the universes, both spiritual and mundane. So every day we're saying this, and we can see how wonderful it is that simply by his glance, the manifestation comes into being. So if anybody has any claims of being God, we can ask them, are you able to create something with your glance? Are you able to make material energy manifest something just by looking at it? I remember a while ago, maybe about 10 to 15 years ago, there was a gentleman, congregation member. I won't say much about him because you might guess who he is. Those of you who've been around a long time, but he had a very marked hairstyle which you couldn't really miss, and he would regularly come in the kirtans and talk to the devotees, and he was really adamant that he was God. And at one point, the teenagers had it out with him, had a chat with him, and said, "So, you're making these claims about being God. Okay, let's see. Can you lift that tree?" And this gentleman actually tried to lift one of the trees here at the manor for quite some time. It was a good few minutes, and then admitted that he couldn't do it. And I think that was the end of his being able to proclaim that or talk about it widely, at least with the devotees. He may be talking about it somewhere else if you come across him in other circles. But yeah, the point here being that, the Lord is so wonderful that he just glances at material energy, and the material energy starts becoming activated. So the first question I have mainly two questions for you guys today. The first question is, what is that glance? And can anyone describe the stage of creation that's being referred to here, where the internal potency has been activated, but the external potency lies dormant? So I might have to ask Adi Guru Prabhu not to answer, and Yadubara Prabhu not to answer because they're very, and maybe Prayojan Prabhu also not to answer, and Jagat Priya not to answer because I'm sure you all know. But yeah, is there anybody else who would like to answer? And if they can't, then we'll attend to one of you. Oh, where's the mic? Yeah, please. Please say your name as well.
Hare Krishna.
What's your name?
Vishal.
Bishal. Bishal, okay.
So, Mahavishnu glances at the material energy, and thus that light coming from his eyes is called Shambhu or Lord Shiva.
Very good.
Shiva, yeah, so
Yes.
Shiva interacts with the material energy, therefore it becomes activated.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I don't know if I should ask you or somebody else if you can explain exactly what stage of creation is being referred to here. Maybe somebody else can have a go at that. So the internal potencies manifest, but the external potency is dormant. Any thoughts, anyone? As to what's happening? Do any of our senior Vaishnavas would any of you like to answer? There was Mataji at the back, if we can pass the microphone. What's your name, Mataji? No, please use the microphone because there are viewers online who'd like to hear also. Speak into the mic.
Before the manifestation of the creation, so the Lord glances, he can create anything at any time.
Okay, very nice. So before the manifested creation that we see, you're saying the Lord can create anything at any time. That's one.
Maybe also after the annihilation, and then again it starts all again after the annihilation.
After?
The annihilation.
Annihilation. Okay.
Creation and then
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that contribution. Prabhu here. If we could pass the microphone here at the front. What's your name?
Bhakta David.
Bhakta David. Hare Krishna.
I was thinking about the word pradhan.
Pradhan.
That is pradhan when it's not manifest, but it's all the ingredients are there of material nature. Yeah.
Fantastic. So you're saying this is happening at the stage where pradhan is present, but it's not actually activated. The ingredients have not come into being at this point. Very nice. Would anybody else like to add anything to that? Otherwise, I'll continue. No? Okay, very nice. Okay. So, just to say, in the Bhagavatam 8.7.22 purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that in the Gita 14.4, where Krishna says he's the father of all living entities, Aham Bija Pradapita, this refers to actions performed by Lord Vishnu through Lord Shiva. So Lord Vishnu is always unattached to material activities, and when they're to be performed, he does so through Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is therefore worshipped on the level of Vishnu. When Lord Vishnu is untouched by the external energy, he's Lord Vishnu, and when he's in touch with the external energy, he appears in his feature as Lord Shiva. So this correlates with the point that Vishal Prabhu made. So to go into a bit more detail, when Brahman, which is Nirguna Brahman, without any qualities, the non-dual impersonal energy, when it combines with the three modes of material nature in their dormant state, it becomes Saguna Brahman, which is also known as Pradhan, which Bhakta David talked about, the state of potential. So Pradhan hasn't manifested anything, but it's got potential in it. And thereafter, when the glance of Mahavishnu is cast, that glance, which is Sadashiva or Shambhu, as we said, contains both time and the living entities, the jivas, who desire to take birth again. And that impregnates or activates Pradhan, and that becomes the Mahat Tattva in its primordial state. And further step, if you can remember this one, and when the Mahat Tattva is further combined with time, that actually activates the modes, because before the modes were in a dormant state. Now they're activated by time, and it becomes Prakriti, or the cosmos as we know it. So that's the stage that's being referred to here. And just a reflection on this, which is that out of love for the jivas, Hare Krishna, the Lord glances at material nature to manifest them, to give them the chance to take birth again. And within the world, he goes to canvas the jivas, or comes to canvas us, and gives scripture or shastra. But because the living beings are a unit of free will, they don't always take advantage, or we don't always take advantage. But still, he comes after us. So this glance of Vishnu, which is Lord Shiva, is it's a glance of love for all the living entities. The Taittiriya Upanishad says, Sa Ekshata, So that also confirms that because of this glance, this everything becomes manifested. And a little bit more detail about this glance, which is from the Brahma Samhita 545 in the purport, it explains that the glance is Sadashiva in the form of Shambhu, which is exactly what Bhaktivishal was explaining. So this is actually very profound, and the detail may be difficult to remember, but at least we can understand the complexity and the depth and the detail of information that's given in Shastra about this process and about this glance. Now, I remembered a lecture by Bhakti Churuswami, His Holiness Bhakti Churuswami, from 1986, and I found my cassette somewhere, and I actually tried to transcribe it, so I may have got a word here or there wrong, but I was just going to read you something from an excerpt from it that I transcribed, which I remembered from the lecture. I wasn't actually present there, but I had the recording. So this is from His Holiness Bhakti Churuswami about this glance. We can consider who, and this is a Radhashtami class, by the way, we can consider who this Radharani is, or what is the dealing between Radharani and Krishna. We can consider that this Mahavishnu just glances at Prakriti, Maya, and just because of that glance, the universe, not only the universe, but the entire material creation is created, just because of his glance at her. But when Krishna looks at Radharani, he's the original personality. Krishna first expands as Balaram. From Balaram come the Chaturvyuha, Sankarshan, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And from that Sankarshan, from the Chaturvyuha Sankarshan or Mahasankarshan, different Narayan forms become manifest. Narayan of Vaikuntha comes from this Adi Sankarshan. Adi means original. Each Narayan himself has also a Chaturvyuha, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And then from this Sankarshan comes Mahavishnu. This Mahavishnu glances at Lakshmi, not even Lakshmi, but Lakshmi's reflection, Maya, Lakshmi's shadow, and the whole material nature starts. So, you must understand that Krishna is not an ordinary human being, and Radharani isn't an ordinary lady, and their dealings are most extraordinary. It is completely beyond our conception. It is completely beyond that. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very mercifully reveals the identity of Radharani. Before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Radharani's identity was not at all understood and not at all revealed. Very rare personalities, self-realized souls, not just self-realized but Vrindavan-realized souls, personalities who knew everything about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, they were aware of Radharani's identity and no one else. So that's the excerpt that I tried to type up from the cassette. So just my thoughts on this. We're very, very fortunate to be serving in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission and to be connected to him via his dearmost servant, Srila Prabhupada. And for those of us that are initiated, very, very fortunate to be connected in this parampara, the Gaudiya Madhva Vaishnava Sampradaya. And, it says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita 1.4, Anarpita Chirim Chirat Karunavatirnakalo Samarpayetam Anatujvala Rasam Svabhakti Shriyam. And the section of this that I wanted to highlight is that Lord Chaitanya came to bestow what no incarnation has ever offered before. The most sublime and radiant mellow of devotional service, the mellow of conjugal love. So it's just a reflection on how fortunate we are to have access to this very, very deep and profound Siddhanta, and that we should approach it with the right mood of reverence and respect. That's very important. So I've got one more question for you. So in the purport here it says that he felt somewhat insufficient. So Mahavishnu felt somewhat insufficient, like a husband feeling lonely in the absence of his wife. This is a poetic simile. And further down it says that he feels something wanting. It says the Lord is so kind that in the absence of such a manifestation, he feels something wanting, and thus the creation takes place. So I've got a question. If the Lord's perfect and complete, as it says in the invocation mantra of Sri Shapanishad, how is it that he feels insufficient or wanting of something? Anybody have any thoughts? I think anyone can answer this one. It's not easy. Yes, Adi Guru Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Shwara Goklananda ki jai.
Jai. Sitaram Lakshmanamani ki jai. Shishigurani Tai ki jai.
So, you've chosen to ask the audience this question. That's fair enough. If you want to do that, you're quite welcome. I'll answer it.
Thank you.
But you should be giving the class on it. Anyway, there are two types of self-satisfaction. One is called Atmarama, and one is called Aptakama. So one of them means that you're spiritually self-satisfied, you don't need anything. And the
Can you hold the mic a little bit closer?
Sorry.
Yeah.
One is that you're spiritually self-satisfied, and the other one is Aptakama, means you can get anything you want, any object. It refers to material potencies or material objects. So Krishna is both Aptakama, he can get anything he wants, and he's Atmarama, he's spiritually self-satisfied in his own existential bliss. So the question is, why does he do anything? Why does he play his flute underneath the desire trees of Vrindavan? Why does he do anything at all? Because there's so many reasons we could talk about, but the one thing is that he is interested in loving exchange. So this expands his bliss or increases it. Therefore, he acts.
Wonderful.
What's the point of being the most beautiful personality in all the three worlds if there's no one to appreciate your beauty?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that very profound realization. Would anybody else like to add to that? The question again was, if Krishna is completely full and perfect in himself, why does he feel something wanting, or why does he feel somewhat insufficient? That's the question. If anyone else has a reflection they'd like to add. Though it's actually, largely it's already been answered, but if anybody else has anything they'd like to add? No? Oh, okay, Vishal Prabhu. And then Prabhu at the front here as well. Go on.
There's always room for more. I like
There's always room for more.
expanding.
Expanding his bliss, which is also in line with what Adi Guru Prabhu was saying, yes. And there was one other hand. Did you want to add to that? No, okay, there's one other hand. Please say your name.
Hare Krishna, it's Devarishi.
Devarishi Prabhu.
I was just reading this morning in Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter 16, and this is the curse of Jai and Vijay. And we hear the incident how Jai and Vijay is falling down, and the Prabhupada saying it's actually been approved. The Lord approves their fall down.
Approves.
Yeah, because the Lord wants to have this fighting spirit, but he can't have that fighting spirit in the spiritual world because nobody wants to be an enemy of the Lord. So it's just interesting that he wants to take this fight in this material nature, and he basically assigns Jai and Vijay to take that role of being the enemies. Obviously, we know the three births that they take, and they have the whole battle with Krishna, So he likes to increase that pleasure also, and we can see in this pastime of how he likes to take that further. So although he is complete, he's Atmaram, but yet he can still have more, because the Lord is unlimited.
Beautiful.
So it's very difficult to comprehend. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Very, very profound thoughts on that. Yes, he's Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. He's ever expanding the ocean of bliss. That ocean of bliss is ever expanding because Krishna himself is the reservoir of all pleasure. And part of that is that he has these amazing pastimes and amazing associates that he chooses to interact with and relate to, because in that relationship he can taste this rasa, which is referred to in the purport. So any last reflection on that before I say something? No? Okay. So I was going to say, I understood logically, I had this discussion with another Vaishnav that if Krishna's complete, that means there has to be incompleteness in him as well. If he's fully perfect, he's fully complete, he's Om Purnamada Purnamidam. That means everything is there. Everything is present in him logically. So I found this purport earlier on in the 3rd canto, 2nd chapter, verse 16, where it says, because the Lord is all-powerful, it's possible for him to adjust opposites, such as birth and no birth, power and defeat, fear and fearlessness. And then further down it says, factually, there is nothing contradictory. Everything is possible when we understand the Lord as the Lord and not as one of us, with our imperfection. So sometimes we project our understanding onto Krishna and think, well, if he's complete, why does he now feel lonely? Why does he feel lacking? Even this is a poetic simile. Why does he want his material energy to wake just like his internal energy has awoken and is manifest? But here it's explained that no, he can feel lacking. He can feel the need for more, because every dichotomy is resolved and attains the perfection of its resolution, in fact, in him. So yeah, it took a bit of time to find a purport that could explain. Prayojan Prabhu, you wanted to add something? Yes. Wait for the mic, Prabhu. Wait, it's coming.
It's an extract from Bhagavad Gita chapter 3:37, where he's describing lust. It's an enemy. And it says here, one can be saved by degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into many for his ever-increasing spiritual bliss. And the living entities are parts and parcels of this spiritual bliss. They also have partial independence, but by misuse of their independence, that when the service attitude is transformed, the propensity into lust for sense enjoyment. They come under the sway of lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give facilities to the conditioned souls to fulfill their lustful propensities. Then, when completely baffled by the prolonged lustful entities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position. The inquiry is the beginning of the Vedanta Sutras, wherein it is said, Atasa Jignasa, one should inquire from into the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as defined in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Chamata Asya, Yato Niviyat. This origin, the origin of everything, is the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, the origin of lust, the origin of everything is the Supreme Brahman. But therefore, the origin of lust is also in the Supreme. If, however, therefore, this is transformed into love for the Supreme, this is transformed into Krishna consciousness. Or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then lust and wrath can be spiritualized.
Brilliant.
It's sort of a bit of a meandering thing.
No, it's
but it says, where is the expanding bliss, and that we're meant to be serving. But this can be, because he doesn't want to be alone.
Yes.
You know, he
Wonderful.
wants us to depend on him. And in that way we inquire from maybe a spiritual master, you know, what is our real position? And I remember Radhat Swami says, our position is not Satchitananda bliss, Satchitananda peace. He says our real position is Satchitananda bliss, not peace. We don't want peace. That's for the Mayavadis and all those. So, sorry.
Thank you. That's very, very profound and very deep.
That's from that purport.
Wonderful.
And 337.
337, Bhagavad Gita 337, if anyone would like to look it up also. Thank you so much for sharing that reflection, Prabhu. So I'm just going to wrap up because we've got a few minutes left. But I was going to say that the further down in the purport, the poetic simile continues, as we explained, that just as the internal potency was awakened, he wanted the sleeping energy to awaken for enjoyment, it says, like the other wives who awake. So in this process of creation, Krishna shows compassion not just for the conditioned souls, but for the external energy too, so that she can fulfill her purpose of facilitating the soul's desire and giving them infinite opportunities to live out their desires and hopefully in time realize their connection with Krishna and turn towards him. The Krishna, as we've discussed, he's Rasika Shekhara, the best connoisseur of rasas, or mellow tastes. Being the source of all, the Vedas explain that he's the only enjoyer and all else are for his service and enjoyment. As it says in the Gita 5:29, Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvalokamaheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gnatva mam shantim richati. Also in the Vedic language it says, Raso Vaisa, Rasam Hyevayam Labdhanvanandi Bhavati. When one understands the personality of Godhead, the reservoir of pleasure, and he becomes transcendently blissful. He becomes transcendently blissful. And that's from the Taittiriya Upanishad 271. So, And the very last section of this purport says, the whole process is to enliven the sleeping conditioned souls to the ever real life of spiritual consciousness, so that they may thus become perfect as the ever liberated souls in the Vaikuntha Lokas. Since the Lord is such an Ananda Vigraha, he likes every part and parcel of his different potencies to take part in the blissful rasa, because participation with the Lord in his eternal rasa lila is the highest living condition, perfect in spiritual bliss and eternal knowledge. So I think I'm going to pause there. But before we take any questions, because we're running short of time, I would like Adi Guru Prabhu to say something about the Panihati festival, which is today and which is being observed here at the manor as well.
Yeah, there's a festival today at 4 o'clock, Panihati. Very, very briefly, because we're late. Lord Chaitanya sent Lord Nityananda back to Bengal to preach, and he made his headquarters very near Calcutta, actually, which is considered North Calcutta, right on the bank of the Ganges at Panihati, and another place very close by called, I forget the name, begins with K. Anyway, by the bank of the Ganges there, Lord Chaitanya Lord Nityananda used to preach all over Bengal and have his headquarters there. And one time, very wealthy person who would become Raghunath Das Goswami, a young man, came to Lord Nityananda to offer his dandavats and obeisances, and Lord Nityananda ordered him to sponsor a feast for all the Vaishnavas. And so they made a very incredibly big feast of different types of chip rice soaked in milk, chip rice soaked in yogurt, chip rice soaked in condensed milk,
Wow.
and with so much mangoes and sugar and all beautiful things. Everyone was in ecstasy, and they had millions of clay pots of this basically sweet rice, and they would cool it down in the Ganges, and they had a big feast and a big kirtan, and Lord Chaitanya actually came to that kirtan, but not many devotees could see him, and he danced with Lord Nityananda. Jai Panihati ki jai,
Jai.
Shishi Gaurnitai ki jai.
Jai.
So you can go and visit Panihati. It's an incredibly potent place. ISKCON has a little temple there. They'll feed you. You can have kirtan through the little lanes and visit a few holy places around there. And now I want to ask a question about your...
Oh, just 1 second. Just to give the full announcement, which Jagat Priya Mataji wanted me to explain.
Yeah.
Anybody who wants to make a chipped rice offering, if they can come here between 3:30 and 5:30 to the Bhakti Lounge, they will be able to prepare their own offering in a pot, to offer. And then the evening temple program starts at 4:30 p.m. in the temple room with kirtans and bhajans. 6 p.m. there's class by Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu. 7 p.m. Gaur Arti. 7:30 there's a drama by the Bhaktivedanta players, and there'll be distribution and honoring of Chida Dahi Maha Mada Prasad. And prasadam will be served in the Seva Hall from 5 to 6:30 p.m. today as well. So, thank you. So, we're actually out of time, but because you have the mic, you can ask your one question, Prabhu, and then we'll finish.
Thank you. So, in your class, you give a description of Sagun Brahman and Nirgun Brahman. Can you explain that again, or say something about that?
Yeah, so I actually did ask another senior Vaishnava about this as well, to try and get a bit more clarification. But essentially, so Nirgun Brahman, Nirguna means without quality, right? It's a non-dual, impersonal energy. But when it combines with the dormant 3 modes of material nature, it gains a state of potential, which is known as Saguna Brahman. Saguna means with quality. So it now has quality in the sense that it's a state of potential. But it needs, and that's called Pradhan. So Saguna Brahman is the same as Pradhan, right? So Nirguna Brahman, it's just the Brahman, there's nothing else there, no qualities. But then when it combines with the 3 modes in their dormant state, it has a state of potential, which is called Saguna Brahman.
So are you saying that Sagun Brahman is a name for the material energy?
It's a name for Pradhan. It's the same as Pradhan.
For the Pradhan.
Yes. But nothing can happen to that without the glance of Mahavishnu. It's a state of potential.
Thank you.
I hope that helps. I don't know much more than that myself, but that's as far as my reading took me. If anybody else would like to answer or add to that response, then please do. Okay. Oh, so back to Bishal, did you want to say something?
I just want to get some clarification. So does Mahavishnu glance at Pradhan or the 3 modes? When does he glance at it?
He glances at Pradhan.
Pradhan. So after it becomes Sagun.
Yes. So Saguna Brahman is the same as Pradhan. So that's Brahman plus 3 modes in their dormant state. Okay. Then he glances, and when he glances, that glance is Sadashiva, but it includes Kala, which is time, and the Bhutas, or the Jivas, the living beings. And when that glance infuses that into the Pradhan, or the Saguna Brahman, then it becomes Prakriti, the manifested cosmos. Yes?
So that's Sagun Brahman, and Brahman without quality is Nirgun Brahman. What's the spiritual realm called?
The spiritual realm is the internal potency. So that's, the internal potency is Brahman, Bhagwan and Paramatma combined, but also here in terms of the manifested internal potency or the spiritual universes, that would be the Chit Shakti, as far as I understand. It may be the Chit, Sandhini and Ladini, but definitely the Chit Shakti would be there, from my understanding. I'd have to look that up to be sure. But yeah, it's essentially the spiritual world manifest. I hope that helps. If somebody else, does anybody have an answer to that in terms of the internal potency? Yeah, so I think it's the Samvit, Ladini and Chit Shaktis. all there. Thank you so much, everyone. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I'm sorry there was not much more time for question, but if there's anybody who wants to speak to me individually, you can come up. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Hope you have a wonderful Pani Hati Chipped Rice Festival here today also. Hare Krishna.